Oh, wow. We made it. I am very humbled and excited to be here with y'all to bring something I've been developing on behind the scenes. This is securing the soil. This is essentially a podcast, something I've been debating doing of how I can contribute to the agriculture industry, to our food system. And yeah, so essentially I said, let's make it happen. Secure the soil, right? This is your go-to podcast for exploring the future of California's food system, right? So join us for engaging conversations about how innovation, sustainability, community health, et cetera, and discover how you can contribute to a greener, healthier world, especially us in California. And we're going to really be focusing on how do we create equity, how do we fix our food system, and we're going to start with breaking down the California Agricultural Land Task Force recommendations and how you, as the viewer, the community, the people, can be involved and be prepared for what I like to call the Great Agricultural Land Reset. Right? That's a tongue twister. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so really, man, just dive in with us, man. Let's just secure the soil. And we're going to be exploring California's continuously evolving food landscape, right? I mean, there's so much going on in California. We got a lot of cutting edge technology in agriculture. We got a lot of sustainable practices. We got community wellness. We're going to be really going in, covering all, whether you yourself or you're passionate about environmentalism and sustainability, or you're really curious about how we fix our food system like myself. There's really something here for you, right? So, I mean, tap in, join the community, join the people. It's going to be a lot of like-minded listeners, subscribers, and just tap in if you want to stay informed and stay inspired. That's really what this is all about. Honestly, man, just keeping our people engaged, especially us from the hoods, all over California, urban, rural, just really keeping us informed and engaged with what is going on, what's going on, you know? So, so yeah, I mean, look. Okay, let me start it off. Let me slow it down. I want to really be upfront with y'all, right? I mean, like from the start, I'm not some super expert, right? What I am someone who really just spent a lot of time, right, in this ecosystem of food systems, agriculture, community engagement. And I have definitely built a lot of good relationships with people who are doing this real work at really high levels. And what I really aim to do is to bring that to you all, right? I want us together to learn from the experts, learn from the people who've been doing it a long time, learn from the people who are really just deep, knee deep in this work, and bring as much of them to this platform as possible, right? And just really work alongside those experts as well to take what the experts have recommended and be a part of actually trying to implement these recommendations, these new technologies, these new things that are coming. How do we implement it within our communities? So that's essentially what Secure the Soil was about, right? I am Timu Asir Martin Bay, for y'all who don't know me, and I just really want you to come on this journey with me. So once again, who is this for, right? Who's this podcast for, right? So let me just be honest about that. Honestly, like this is for potential land stewards, right? This is people who want to build equity in land themselves. This is for families, people who are in urban environments that want to make a change, people who are already looking at how they get involved in these spaces, right? And they're really saying, okay, there got to be a better way to use these spaces. And it's also for you future advocates, for the young people who really care about food justice and who want to understand the policy side of all of this, right? People not being involved in policy for the last, I would say, 6, 7 years. And so if any of that is you and that resonates with you, then you are definitely in the right place. And I am glad that you're here, right? And I want to speak to some things that I know a lot of us are carrying, right? So maybe you don't really know how to reclaim your own land, and you don't know how to fix your community and how land in our urban and rural environments can even be accessible, right? Maybe you are someone who you don't really want to quit your job, but being landless keeps you from farming and keeps you from growing your own food at your own terms. And maybe you're just tired of eating all this processed food, right? Because fresh food is out of reach, right? Tired of watching prices go up. I mean, I just spent $100 on gas today, right? You tired of prices going up on things that should be basic like food, right? And mind you, I hear that, I really do, right? I live it. I'm right here with y'all, and I want this show to do. Honestly, I just want this to be a community and where we can collectively move forward and we can do something better. And equity, which is what I really this show is going to be centered around and how do we create it. It's not simply just about land; it's also about power, right? It's about dignity. It's about making sure our communities can thrive for generations. So I think this podcast can help you, right? Even very early, I want to be honest. I do think that if you don't think this applies to you and you think because you don't have a background in any of this stuff, but and you don't have the money or you don't really live rural or you don't even come from a family who farms, right? You don't have to quit. You don't have to stop what you're doing to reshape your whole life to be a part of, the food system and all this other stuff, right? I've seen people from all kind of situations find a way to make this work. And a lot of people just have so much questions about how they can get involved. And I think that's just really what I want this show to really be about, right? It's just about exploring different entry points, tapping in with real people, and how do we, just really make this work on a city, county, state, and on the federal level. I mean, I'm in California, so this show is going to be definitely featured around California and the equity report and the new task force report. But it's really just for anybody all over the globe, right? So once again, let me just kind of that's my spiel, that's my introduction, right? But let me tell you a little bit about myself for those who don't know me, right? If this is the first episode and you have no idea who I am, right, and why I do care so much about food systems and all this other stuff. So I'm a food systems advocate. I'm an urban agroecologist. Yes, I know how to grow food. I understand the whole system. I'm a chef by trade. My chef goes from California French fusion all the way to fully plant-based, and I'm also tapped into a little bit of the alkaline vegan. I'm not an expert in that, but I know enough to feed them. I'm an author, six-time author. This is my sixth book. It's called From the Block to the Table, right? And I'm also a TEDx speaker. The book is based off of my TEDx speech. I've served on a lot of different advisory committees from city, county, state, federal committees, coalitions, collectives, just consulting groups. I've done a lot of things behind the scenes, and ultimately, what this show is sponsored by, this is a leg of what I co-founded, which is Osiris Bridge, right? And that essentially is what matters the most to me, right? Is that I really I'm a community member, right? I'm with y'all, my people. I grew up. I'm from the west side of Compton. I let it be known. I'm from the city. I've definitely seen what a broken food system does to a neighborhood up close and personal. I spent, my whole adult life trying to understand what does it take to actually fix this food system, right? And not just simply fix it, but really make a real impact. So that's why I do have access to experts, to researchers, to policymakers, to practitioners who are really just doing so much incredible, inspiring work. And what I want to do is just bring all that right here as much as I can, whoever's willing, um, you know, to really figure it out together and have something living that's really essential for all of us to continue to have, not only for ourselves, but for our children, for our grandchildren, just create a living thing, right? So, I mean, my path with this, let me, kind of go a little bit about my history, right? For those who I seen you tuning in. My path in this really started, right? It started with cooking as a chef, right? I was a caterer, right? Once again, in Compton, a food desert, and I was really just struggling trying to find the freshest food, trying to find quality produce and quality meals. And I remember really thinking like, this is really just not, this not a me thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a systems problem. You know what I'm saying? Where's the food? Why is it so hard? You feel me to access? food, healthy food, and who made these decisions. And the frustration really just kind of sent me down a rabbit hole, down a path that I'm still walking today. And then early in my well, later in my 20s, I had the opportunity to spend time in Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii. Much respect to the Kamaina. And that definitely genuinely changed my perspective on what was possible and just what's really going on. I got to see people, community organizing. I got to see community gardens at scale. I really got to learn how to run an agricultural project like a business. I got to learn how to scale businesses, but really what most important that I was introduced to the whole concept of land advocacy, right? And to land tenure. These concepts of colonialism and things of that nature really came to me while I was in Hawaii. And that really made me have deeper questions of like who controls land and what does that mean for the community's future. And then that's when I really realized like there's a lot more work I need to do. And that's when I decided to come back to California. Um, and initially it was to open up a vegan restaurant, but then the pandemic happened 2020 pandemic, and I shifted into working with the Compton Community Garden. And and that was a part of me that I just, that I always will continue to care about. And at that time when I came back, it was just kind of abandoned. It was just kind of left, and it wasn't that much activity. And it wasn't that people didn't care. It was just because once again, land disputes, bureaucracy that got in the way, right? And when people don't have secure land or underneath what they're trying to build, that can really destabilize things. And at that moment, it hit me really hard. It clarified something very early in me that I hadn't really understood before, which is community organizing without land security is always one dispute from being erased, right? And so that's when I shifted into, just rebuilding it even with instability. And we built it with intention, and we got a lot of attention to legal and policy layers and underneath that work. And from what happened with that, point four is what I want to share with you all on this show, right? All the lessons, all the mistakes, right? All the things that I learned and I lost, right? And the experts that I did find along the way, right? And the things that actually did work, right? And ultimately really also really honing in on this core problem. I think that's the whole point. Once again, it's called secure the soil, right? That core problem, it kept coming up, which is no matter what we built, no matter who we partner with, right? Land access, land tenure, even in urban environments, those barriers to accessing land are very layered and they're very complicated. And so even understanding this problem intellectually, turning that understanding into real resources for my community is a whole different type of change. And that's what I've been working on just at scale. And that's ultimately what I want us to continue to work through together because that is something that I can see. It really just, it really has a big impact on our whole day to day. So that's when I started getting involved in advocacy, right? Working with different partners to help author land and support policies at the state level, at the federal level, and that address land equity and land tenure. And what I found was this, right? This is very learnable that you don't have to be a lawyer or a lobbyist to participate in this process. You just have to show up consistently and be willing to build relationships, like really like, and that's essentially what thrusted me to creating what we call our Series Bridge, right? This is my consulting company, my formal way of navigating this industry. And through our Series Bridge, I've been able to do some culturally relevant outreach, right? Helping connect our BIPOC farmers and our food systems with federal, state, and private resources. I have been very successful at that. And I've helped to organize and modernize agriculturalist young people. And once again, I'm sharing this not to necessarily like impress, right? Impress anybody, but to show that the work I'm describing on this show, I have actually done, right? And these are not just theories. These are things that happen in the real world. And so it kind of, I'm gonna go a little bit in deeper as well with kind of, just a little backtracking, right? But we helped to create, well, I joined California Farmer Justice Collaborative and they created AB 1348 through the 2017 Farmer Equity Act, right? That's a very important piece of this pie, right? I'm gonna just kind of give you guys some insight of how we get into where we are now. This is only episode one, once again. So that was real legislation that opened up real doors for underrepresented farmers. Shout out to them. And I went back when I got nominated to be a part of an advisory committee. I did join CFJC, right? Right. And also, I got to learn a lot about Allensburg, right? The town of Allensburg, which is with the Congressional Black Caucus, they advocated for $40 million from the state budget, right? And then they created a beginning farmer training program that received around $500,000 grant. And so they brought me in to help connect, that to LA. And there are people who, that I know who graduated that and are right now farming. With much respect, shout out to Kashif, shout out to Dennis and his family, right? That this organization, and they also just purchased 1,500 acres. So this is kind of sustained advocacy can produce, right? And then around that time, also help with advocating for 1.5 million for the Ujamaa Farmer Collective, right? And much respect to them, they've been able to just get it going. And they now have a 20-acre farm in Winters, right? And it's real. We've harvested things from those farms. It's feeding real people. It's a real thing, and they got some big news coming as well that I will be sharing within the next few episodes, right? And also, once again, the where it all started with the Compton Community Garden, right? They raised over $400,000 in 2023, and I just did my part to contribute to that as best I can. I definitely am not the driver of that, but I definitely was, a part of the fundraiser and um, so I helped how I could. Um, but the land is in the land trust now, right? And that land is protected for 100 years, right? That's something that can be passed down. So I mean, come on now, that's real talk, right? We got my other nonprofit that I helped to start, which is Holistic Divine Innovations, right? And we've built multiple community gardens under this organization. Much respect to my best friend Tyrone Ledford. He's going to be on this show coming soon too, right? And he's been really the driving force of building community gardens from scratch, right? And people have actually donated land to our organization because they trusted what we was able to build. I also spent time working with CrossFop LA. Much respect to Jemiah Harkins, right? And he had $4 million allocated to him from the state budget. And I was just a part of helping implementing one of the farms and just once again I'm observing real money going to real communities and going into real things, right? And I also was a part of the National Young Farmers Coalition, young, a land fellowship, right? This is a very national thing where we are learning about how to put things on the farm bill, which dictates the budget of the USDA. And I got to really take 2 years to really understand federal legislation, to really understand the national scope of land, tenure land access, and really just the really crazy, insane numbers around the disparities of land on a federal level, right? And then we advocated for things for the farm bill. We presented the Lasso bill, which was $100 million proposed, and we were part of this 1 million acre fundraiser, right? And essentially that didn't get passed, but I still was a part of the process of learning it. And I'm still a part of the California Agricultural Land Fellowship, right? And this is people from all over California who came together to advocate for what the governor will now created was $3 million to create the California Agricultural Land Task Force, right? So this is something that is going to be a driving part of this podcast, right? And once again, I'm sharing this all just in context, so that way you can understand the landscape of what we're operating at, and it's really bigger than what most people realize, and there are just so many more entry points than most people know about, right? And so I really came to this realization after really years of doing this work and still doing this work, right? I'm also a part of LA County Urban Agricultural Committee. I was a part of Los Angeles County Food Equity Roundtable, right? And I was a part of Los Angeles County Food Policy Council. I'm not as active in those spaces as I once was, but I still was a part of these spaces for years, right? And once again, I can really start coming to these real realizations after campaigns, after seeing grants, after building relationships, and I just kept coming back to the same thing, right? Especially as somebody from LA, from Compton, that most people in our communities don't know, right? Most of this stuff has happened. They don't know resources exist. They don't know the land is being transferred. They don't know the policy windows are opening up. And that's really what I want to change is why I'm doing this show, right? Is that I truly in my heart believe that we are in a once in a generational time, a real opportunity, right? And I think that this is something that our community, like we really need to understand that once again, I call this the great agricultural reset, right? It's already happening. And what comes out of it, who benefits, who gets left behind is going to really be determined by who's informed and whose position, right? So I really think that by the time people are done with at least this episode and the podcast in general, that we'll have an understanding of what this transition is, what's happening, and why you as a listener, you can take some small steps to get involved no matter where you're starting from. And I think my goal for this show and for anyone listening is to walk away with a sense of direction, right? Some kind of compass, some language for what's happening in land equity and land tenure, and an awareness of the community you can be a part of, right? Some concrete first steps of like how do you build something real, right? For yourself or people around you, right? So I mean, I would advocate, people can be present, but I understand that, I think there's something that you can put in. Um Something that you can put in, while you at work, while you doing something, while you driving, you know what I'm saying? Just kind of just get it, understand um what's going on, And also, yeah, I do want to make sure I'll let people know there's a gift. So myself and my teacher, Dr. Sheridan Ross, this is a quick little shout out. Once respect to him, I'll be interviewing him as soon, I believe so. He don't know it yet, but I will. Um, that we wrote a book together. He's the one who taught me how to grow food organically. I will always give him his respect, his flowers. Um, and our book we wrote during the pandemic was about organic garden, right? And it's a book that we wrote where I break down the nuances of the system, and he teaches how to grow for ourselves, right? And this book is a free book that we give to everybody, right? Um, and I also want to I'm going to provide a lot of resources and just connections um as well as far as like how we can get started as well. Like it's not going to just be me and my rhetoric. We're going to really be going through real information, real data, step by step. So you can get, it's not just me up here talking, what I'm saying this stuff, right? Um, because I do want people to really get the concept of like, learning what I learned from about land access, land tenure is that this is really the foundation. And I want people to really also understand that land is also to a degree it's a concept. Like it can expand, it can contract, right? Soil can be created, soil can be duplicated, soil is just energy, right? And that's the foundation of everything else that's built on, right? So we are definitely going to be talking about AI as well and things of that nature, but it's going to be based upon just real knowledge, real data, not just my rhetoric, right? So with that being said, right, let's kind of jump into the next segment, right? What is causing what we call this agricultural reset, right? Right. Sorry. Um, and I just want to share a little bit more data, like I said. So once again, when it's really said and done, 98% of landowners of the land is owned by people who are classified as white, right? That's a social status, right? We're different, right? Think about that. 98% of land is owned by people who are classified as white. And that's according to the National Farmers Coalition Land Report. But the average age of a farmer is 60 years old, right? And most farmers let that sink in. The average age of a farmer is 60 years old, and most farmers, if we're being honest, don't really have succession plans, right? They're not really have a process of what to put in place, of how they're going to sell the land, how they're going to transfer the land, where they're going to lease the land to, how they're going to parcel it out. right? And especially with the way our current economy is, right? With the way our current policies are, right? There are a lot of windows that are opening up for people to we're gonna what do we do, right? We talking about potential wars, we talking about gas prices surging, we're talking about all kind of different things happening. And so there's opportunities in all kind of there's opportunities, good ones, bad ones. It's just a lot of things happening. Right. And I'm not saying this to essentially like alarm you, but I'm saying to give some context of like what the landscape is, right? And a lot of the experts that we're going to be talking to in the show, right? They're telling me that if we're really honest, especially after this land report has been released, which will be diving deep into, like there's a lot of windows right now that are wide open, right? That we need to really take it upon ourselves to access, right? And then once again, the major thing is the legislation that was created in California, right? And that there's still policy. I'm still working on more legislation and policy, right? There there's some things that are still in motion, right? We got bonds that are coming. This $30 million bond that's for land access and land tenure for bypass farmers, right? I mean, the USDA with all of its nuances and chaos, it has grant programs that are included for land access and fundable land things, right? Um, the increasing land capital market program is designed that we try to implement is designed for underserved communities, right? That actually went through. And there are real programs, there's real resources that most people just in our communities either don't exist, don't know exist, and at the same time, those who are trying to get it might not have. There's still a lot of racism and nuances within the agriculture industry, right? And the main thing, like I said, I'm going to focus on with this podcast to really build this foundation is this agricultural land task force recommendation, right? That's really just what I'm going to focus on. Right. The California Agricultural Land Task Force, right? They released recommendations to the governor to the state this year, right? This is a 3-year committee of people who came together, experts from all over California, who came together and said, this is what we truly in our heart think and logically, rationally based upon data and years of research and outreach. And just this is something that just came up out the blue. Excuse me, that they believe that these recommendations and all the insight and the data around the recommendations are how we, especially in California, can fix this problem of land, right? And some of it is going to take policy, and some of it is things that we could do, right? And once again, now that I'm in these rooms, I'm a part of the committee of people, the collective who advocated for this, and I'm part of the collective who's still trying to work with this report. So what I'm going to be talking about in this podcast is also things I'm still doing in real life as far as trying to implement these things. Like I'm not just sitting here talking about it. I'm talking about it to people, and I'm also in the rooms trying to continue to create legislation and programs and things of that nature, and then communicate that with my people, right? Right. So I just don't want us to be. I don't want us to be scrambling. You know what I'm saying? I don't want us to be behind and trying to figure out and be like, oh, what happened? I want us to be prepared and ready to go, right? So I want to show you all a little bit of the recommendations real quick. Okay. So So yeah, I mean, look, this is let's this is what it is, man. Like let's get in right into it. Uh, this is the California Agricultural Land Task Force report, right? This is 170 pages, right, of advancing agricultural land equity in California. Recommendations of the California Agricultural Land Equity Task Force, right? So I truly in my heart don't expect everybody to want to read 170 pages, right? Except if you like really, you really in it. But I do see that there are ways where we can keep these 170 pages, bring them to life, right? So I'll be doing things like reading it to people, I'll be talking with the experts. I'll be hope do my best to interview everybody on the task force, to interview people who own a lot of land, to interview people from our collective, to interview a lot of organizations that are recommended in this, interview the organizations who are already doing the work. There's so many organizations who are already doing the work, and be very clear, who are already doing the work, who didn't need to wait for this. Plus, there's also other reports around this that already showing it, right? That already have done this. This is like keeping it in motion. So once again, I want to really read this. Agricultural land equity is when priority producers and tribal land stewards have secure and affordable access to viable land for the stewardship and cultivation of food, fiber, medicine, and cultural resources without systemic barriers, disparities, or exploitation. Yes. So, yeah, this is something that we'll be going through. I'm gonna read the executive summary, and I think that should be enough for today, right? California faces an agricultural land equity crisis that must be promptly addressed. For decades, many producers and tribal land stewards in California have been systemically excluded from land ownership and secure tenure due to race, ethnicity, gender, class, and citizenship status, among other factors. Today, these exclusions intersect with agricultural land consolidation and finalization, climate change, and burdensome regulations resulting in negative outcomes for agricultural communities and the state's ecological and economic resilience. Addressing these harms requires active efforts to ensure that priority producers and tribal land stewards have access to secure, affordable, and viable land for the stewardship and cultivation of food, fiber, medicine, and cultural resources without systemic barriers, disparities, or exploitation, right? And in turn, these efforts hold potential to benefit all Californians by fostering a more resilient and just food system through strengthening local, diverse food economies and sustaining healthy, natural, and working lands established in the California Budget Act of 2022, 8179. The California Agricultural Land Equity Task Force is an independent 13-member body directed to submit a report by January 1st, 2026 to the legislature and governor that includes a set of policy recommendations on how to address the agricultural land equity crisis. The task force is an independent body administered by the California Strategic Growth Council, and I also want to talk about what that is as well. And as an independent body composed of public members with diverse backgrounds and experiences, the task force is uniquely situated to provide the governor and legislature with an understanding of people's lived experiences with agricultural land. Yes. So that's where we at. So I mean, so hold on. Yeah, we live. So I want to go through these six major things, and I'm going to bring it to a conclusion, right? Number one is prioritize tribal land stewardship and land return with respect to the indigenous, Aboriginal, Asiatics, right, and the people original tribals of this state, right? Two, fund and incentivize land acquisition for priority producers and tribal land stewards. Three, halt, mitigate, and reverse agricultural land consolidation. Four, preserve California's agricultural land while prioritizing equitable land access and stewardship. Five, prioritize and protect secure land tenure. And six, support urban ag, right? So this report is a result of 2 years of public meetings, site visits, guest speakers, presentations, and community engagement sessions across California. In addition to relying on members' expertise, the task force prioritized community engagement and outreach through its process. The views and recommendations expressed herein are those of the task force and not necessarily those of the California Strategic Growth Council or the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation, right? Right. So essentially, that's what this show is going to be about, right? We we have the ability to really make a change. This is a precedented new time. And then from my vantage point, it's really just up to us to just contribute how we can. And that's how I see what I just want to do. I feel like, what can I do? Like, I can't change the world. I can't, but there are things we can do, which is talk about it, get it out there, get it to the people, and just do what we can. So, I think our next episode, I want to really go through um just really pathways that I think that we can start, right? I think that there are three keys from my vantage point that I think that we can really just really, get it in, right? I think the three approaches is really high. I think from what I've seen work, right, and the approach that the experts, they work for me, and they're not really secrets. They're more so frameworks. I think they can apply to almost anyone who wants to get involved, right? And the three approaches are grassroots strategy, right? To start where you are. Number two, we got to be accepting about AI and all the nuances of it, right? We got to at least dive into it, get an understanding, get a feel for it. How can it help us? How is it detrimental to us? And then number three shout out to Don Kennedy, right? OPM, right? Other people's money, right? Advocacy grants, partnerships, investments, loans, capital fundraising. Like, we have to do what we can to access the resources that are available. And so we're going to walk through each one on the next episode, and we're also going to take a deeper dive into these reports as well. And just thank you for the journey. This is the first episode of Secure Soil. It's been a pleasure. I will see you all next week. Okay, secure the soil. Peace and blessings, everyone.